Because this is a message that Congress has to hear and has to hear often. You can be a hero by cutting the research budget this year, and the economic damage that does, doesn't play out in the next election, but it plays out in the decades to come. It's almost a design failing of democracy, that all of the political incentives are near term, and that causes us to systematically underinvest in things with long-term payoffs, like federally funded research. And so making sure that everyone who works in these buildings here understands that those investments pay off not only 20 years from now, but will pay off in the sort of startup operations you're hearing about today.
We believe, Chris and I understand that the value of science in keeping America a competitive place in a global economy is at the forefront. And we want to make sure that we do everything that enhances the chances that science is honored and esteemed. I also would say, perhaps as an aside, that in my view, science gives the opportunity for policymakers like me to have better answers to difficult questions. So not only is this beneficial to our economy, but it's beneficial to our understanding of the world, so that decisions that we make have more value and have greater consequence, better consequence to the citizens we represent.
Thank you, Jerry, for being a good partner in the Competitiveness Caucus, something that we launched because we saw there was not one area to focus on all the different components of competitiveness globally, to look at tax, trade, intellectual property, innovation, immigration, other policy areas that if we don't get them right, we can reasonably predict that the United States will not be as secure and prosperous and promising a country as it's been. And federal investment in R&D is an absolutely linchpin piece of our being a competitive society going forward.
When I joined the university community, I had no idea the depth and breadth of the science that was happening at most universities, covering essentially all topics of inquiry. And what was particularly surprising to me was how commercially relevant so many of these inventions are. And a surprising number of those turn into products that are heading towards the market that will either save or improve people's lives. There were nearly 1,000 new startups created last year based on research emerging from the American universities, according to Autumn. But it's easy to hear those numbers and not necessarily have them have context. Because each one of those companies, if they succeed, will be something that you will all and your children and your children's children will be using in everyday life, and sometimes may actually save their lives.
My name is Jeb Connor. I'm co-founder, CEO, and chairman of Genome Profiling, known as GenPro. We're located in Newark, Delaware. We're based on a technology that is spun out of the University of Delaware that was invented by a professor who is my partner in GenPro, Adam Marsh. The business we're in is discovering a new class of biomarkers called epigenetic biomarkers that have tremendous power in discriminating between responders and non-responders of therapeutics. We likewise apply these to match the right therapeutic to the right patient and really drive the promise of precision medicine. But they're extendable well beyond that to also identify early disease detection before it becomes symptomatic so that it can be addressed very early on, which has a profound impact on the patient and the cost of the care of the patient. The underlying technology that allows us to do this is a computational technology. Think of it as big data, resides in the cloud, is very proprietary, and allows us to elucidate these very complex epigenetic signals that associate with the characteristics that drive the clinical value. That technology was invented by Adam Marsh about in the period of 2001 through 2009. Interestingly, it was invented through an NSF grant, basic research grant. that supported his inquiry into how invertebrate worms are able to survive in the harsh environment under the Antarctic cap. And that led to his understanding that epigenetics, as opposed to genetics, played a very material role, in particular an approach or a mechanism called gene methylation that required the invention of a complex statistical quantification model. That quantification model is the core of what we are today. We're young. We have about 4 employees, projected to grow to about 36 to 38 over the next couple of years, and are in the process of securing growth funding now that we've established collaborative relationships with several biopharma companies.